And I think we can move on to the next pick, which would be 80.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, Tyrese Maxey going to the 76ers. Personally, to me, this is the steal of the draft. And I hate to say it because I hate the 76ers. But I think this was just an absolutely amazing pick for them. He can actually be a real prototypical point guard, unlike Ben Simmons. He can shoot. He plays tough defense. He's also super clutch. I saw this one contested three he made against Michigan State to seal the game. It was honestly like watching it in real time. It was like Kyle Lowry-esque. As blasphemous as that might be to say, I really like this player. I just like the whole mentality he brings. He's just a scrappy player, and that's exactly what the Sixers need. Between the drama with Simmons and Embiid, they just need a guy who's going to put his head down and come in and work. And I think he can be a really good player. I hate that Philly picked him, but I'm going to be rooting for him. I think this is the steal of the draft. I love what Daryl Morey's doing, by the way.
And I think a big question with this guy is, can he be a guy who just puts his head down and works like none of the other 76ers seem to do? Like, I want him to fit in with the culture. But actually, let me rephrase that. I want him to change. I want him to be kind of the movement that's starting to change the culture in Philly, because I think Philly's culture is a little bit stagnant, and it's not going to go anywhere without guys who are willing to work as hard as other teams are, I guess. So yeah, but I good player. Like, I've seen his highlights and I've read a little bit about him. Good player overall. So I mean, if Philly thought he was the guy here, who can fault them, right?
I think Maxey and Embiid would make an elite TikTok duo with their dance moves and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
All the little antics they have. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a very Sixers pick in the way that he was dancing and going on TikTok.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so I'll do. This is Marco's pick at 22.
Sure.
I'll just go over it. At 22, the Nuggets took Zeke Nagia. He's a mobile big man. He runs the floor very well. He's got great hands and a nice scoring touch. He's pretty athletic, good body control, decent player above the rim, and he has a little bit of a mid-range game as well. He's been shown that he has an all right ability to play defense in space. However, he doesn't project as like a very great rim protector. So I don't really know exactly like what the Nuggets are thinking with this pick, although I don't hate it. They have a lot of kind of like bigger players that take up a lot of minutes on their team, like obviously Jokic, like Bol, I'm very high on as well, that I think they should be giving him a few more minutes. So I think this is a good player at 22. He sort of projects as like an energy type of big man off the bench, I feel like, but I don't know exactly what his route to minutes is going to be on the Nuggets. So he may be more of just like a developmental piece to just kind of stash, and then when his time comes, that's when he'll be slotted into the line.
Yeah, and I think this is the Mason Plumlee replacement that I want. Like, Mason Plumlee, he needs to go. He's not part of the future of this organization. Put this guy in there. You got Bol and him, and Plumlee no longer deserves any minutes, I think, on this team. So with the next pick is 23, I believe.
Yeah, 23 is me as well. So this was sort of a weird pick. It was initially the Knicks pick, but it got traded to the Wolves. And with this pick, the Wolves selected a shooting guard out of Barcelona. His name's Leandro Bolmaro. So this pick for me is one that I don't really like for the Timberwolves. The Wolves drafted a shooting guard last year in Jarrett Culver, and obviously this year they picked Anthony Edwards first overall. And they still have Malik Beasley on their roster, who's already a great young player at 23 years old. Well, Bolmaro, he's a talented playmaker. He has good handles and a decent scoring touch. He's primarily used these skills operating as the lead guard at Barcelona, which on a team with all those players that I mentioned above and D'Angelo Russell, I don't really see how he's going to be able to use those skills that he has in like a role player type of situation. Like, even operating as a lead guard at Barcelona, his stats weren't overly impressive, and they don't really jump off the page for a first-round pick. In 22 games, he averaged 8 points per game on 42% from the field, 28% from three, and he only shot 67% from the line. On tape, Bolmaro, he's had moments where he looks like he's a decent player, and like he probably is, but I don't see how his game is going to really translate to contributions on a team that's stacked with guards. And when the lead, even as a lead guard at Barcelona, he wasn't overly productive. Overall, like, I think the player will, even though I think he's an all right player, I think the Timberwolves could have gotten a lot more out of this pick. If they wanted him, they pick again 5 picks later at 28. And for this guy who is projected to go at the end of the first and possibly slide into the second, I really think the Wolves could have waited and gotten a lot more out of this pick.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's the biggest problem in my opinion, is why they could have picked him 4 picks later, right? 5 picks later. Yeah. I just don't understand the need to take that guy there when you could have just gotten him later. That's my biggest problem with it. I agree with everything you said about his numbers not jumping off the page. Definitely, in my opinion, a questionable decision. I think there were better players on the board, but
yeah, definitely.
Is the next pick 24?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a very confusing pick, boys. So this was actually the Bucks pick that then went to the Pelicans in the Drew Holiday trade, but in the last 12 hours, actually is now a Nuggets pick.
What?
So RJ Hampton is on the Nuggets now. So RJ Hampton, being on the Nuggets, he's 6'5", 185, and he's a guard. He's a point guard. So here's the pros of this. The big pro is that I think Denver has time to develop this guy, right? Because they're already a great team. They can take RJ Hampton, who's a player that I like, and kind of build him up to what they think his potential is. He was a superstar in high school, very highly rated coming out of high school. He's often seen as the fastest player on the court, and he could work well for the Nuggets in transition, which I think is something that Jokic often throws the ball up in transition, and then Will Barton runs up and tries to like jam it and like misses. I think this guy is the Will Barton of the Nuggets in the future. Like, this guy could fill in that Will Barton role in transition. And he is a great floater and a great mid-range, and his height adds offensive versatility and allows for very creative finishing. The only thing I can say negatively about him is his time in the NBL left much to be desired. He didn't really statistically perform that well in the NBL. And the mid-range and the transition offense are kind of getting phased out of the NBA a little bit. Obviously, you can still be a mid-range player, but ideally, it's not, I guess, now considered one of the more effective ways to score. So in today's NBA, the mid-range game is kind of falling behind, and this is where he excels the most. So that would just be one notable thing, but I still think the Nuggets have time with this guy, and clearly they wanted him. They gave a future first-round pick, I believe, for him. So there you go. They got RJ Hampton, and I think he could be the shooting guard of the future.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he's like you said before, like, the Nuggets aren't in a situation where they need to be slotting young players in and having them perform right away. So, like, I think the RJ Hampton pick is all right. However, like, one thing that it leaves a lot to be desired with RJ Hampton is that, like, even when you're going to try to slot him in as like a role type of player before, like, if they're even planning to put him into a lead role, which I assume they would at some point since they drafted him in the first round. But anyways, like, he tend to struggle defensively even in the NBL. So it's like it's very questionable, like, how his defense is going to translate into the NBA game, even when he eventually starts getting any meaningful minutes with the Nuggets. Like, it could be a little bit of a problem for him.
Right. And I think that's why it's part of the process, right? It's part of bringing him in and letting him kind of learn under a good team, a good coach, a good system. He's going to get some good NBA experience, and hopefully those are things that he can work out of his game, right? Because I think he's only 19. So, I mean, lots of time in his NBA career to kind of hammer things out. And obviously the Nuggets saw something that they really liked in him.
All right. So for the 25th pick, this pick saw a flurry of trades that saw the Knicks go from 27 to 23 and then back to 25, which demonstrated that the Knicks clearly had their eye on a guy in this range that they wanted to take. That man was apparently Emmanuel Quickley, point guard from Kentucky. This was originally a Thunder pick that the Knicks acquired from Minnesota. Quickley was a bit of a stretch pick. He was originally projected outside of the first round. However, the Knicks addressed a need for a dynamic point guard that they didn't address with the Obi Toppin pick. to play alongside RJ Barrett in the backcourt. I think they see this guy as one of the best shooters in the draft. And also, he apparently has one of the highest free throw percentages in all of college basketball. Essentially never misses from the free throw line, is a sharpshooter from the perimeter. So I think it's a good pick for the Knicks. They addressed the point guard position need that they were thought to have addressed with. I thought it was going to be Tyrese Halliburton with the 8th pick, but they got their man here, Emmanuel Quickly. Overall, a good pick. A little bit of a surprise, but I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned. Sorry, Aiden, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think the only knock on this pick is the projection of where he was projected to go versus where he went. But that's all shooter.
Yeah, like I see the argument with like the projection, but like this is a draft where it's like teams sort of
always
have
been
to
taking with these guys that are like 9.
You were lagging out.
Yeah, sorry, my connection just went out. Yeah, I was just gonna say the Knicks needed a knockdown shooter. He's a little bit older, just like Obi Toppin, which I think is good considering the types of players they've drafted in recent years. I just think he's a good pick for the Knicks. They kind of went safe, which is, that's okay when you're the New York Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just imagine if they had Tyrese Halliburton, eh? Like, this is one of those picks where you pick this guy, but then you're like, wait a second, we could have gotten just a way better player. Like, this is a pick. This is kind of, I get that they're addressing the need, and they definitely needed to address the need. And I don't think this is necessarily.
Yeah, they did kind of hamstring themselves into needing to take a player like this.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah, so. I completely agree. But overall, I mean, the New York Knicks now have a new point guard, so God bless his soul because he's going to need it.
That's for sure.
I think we're on 26 now.
Yeah.
I believe, that's me. Okay, so this is an interesting pick. Peyton Pritchard goes to the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I didn't know too much about this player before. I had to do a little digging after he was drafted. So I watched a few highlight clips. I watched a game where he went off against Arizona. He scored like 38 points. I don't know. To me, it just seems like he's just going to be a backup guard that can shoot and make the occasional a nice pass. I think if he gets serious minutes ever, there will be the odd game. When I was watching him, he seems to be good at setting himself up and creating shots beyond the 3-point line. I will say when I was researching him, I saw a lot of comparisons between him and Fred VanVleet. Mostly because he's undersized and he has a high motor on defense, which seems to make people think he's going to develop on defense like Fred did. I don't know. I honestly don't really see it. Fred is he just has a dog mentality, and not every guard has that. That's part of the reason why he's had success at his size in the NBA. And this guy Peyton Pritchard in the NBA. Well, so I did want to say, when this pick rolled around, I was really upset because I like Jaden McDaniels a lot for the Raptors, and he ended up going one pick before them. Mm-hmm. And then I loved Desmond Bane for the Raptors, and he went one pick after. And so I was I trust Masai, but that just bugged me a bit because I liked both of those players.
Yeah, and it's funny.
They were back-to-back sandwiched between the Raptors.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about a guy like with a Fred VanVleet motor, because in a couple picks, we're going to be talking about a guy that the Raptors actually did take. But who's next at 27? Marco.
27. So this was Marco's. I've been rehashing Marco's thing. So at 27, the Jazz took a massive center off of the Kansas Jayhawks. His name is, excuse me if I messed this up, Udoka Azubuike, I think. So this guy is an absolute physical freak. He has elite size. He's over 7 feet tall with a 270-pound frame and a 7'7" wingspan to go along with good explosiveness and mobility it's not there yet, but it's improving and it's developing. This guy's a dominant presence inside of the paint. He's an elite lob target who's just massive size, makes him very effective in the post. He's one of the better post finishers in this draft, and he can be an anchor on he was an anchor on one of the top defenses in college basketball. In terms of the Jazz picking this guy at 27, I think it is a pretty good fit because he's a very like defensive oriented center, and he kind of has similar like skill sets to Rudy Gobert. So I think what the Jazz are trying to do with this pick is they're trying to use like the Rudy Gobert skill set and also apply it to their bench with a rookie who's obviously has the physical gifts to be NBA ready. And then if or when Gobert is done, they'll kind of have this guy in the system who's been one, learning the defense, two, has the physical gifts to play in the same role that Gobert has, and then he can just like he can seamlessly slot in wherever they would need him as a big man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is learning the system, right? Like the Jazz kind of run a very specific type of basketball team, so I completely agree. I think he's what they hope Gobert. He's the Gobert replacement in a way, but also, I mean, maybe he develops to be different than Gobert, right? He has kind of a very like a kind of a tougher frame. He could be more of maybe like more of a prominent inside scorer than Gobert. But once again, we're getting to the end of the first round here, so these guys aren't going to be necessarily contributing a lot in their first year.
Yeah, exactly. Like this guy's like he's more of a shoot just based on physical potential. I feel like at like 270 pounds and to be like decently mobile, like that's kind of a scary thing when he gets a little bit older and more refined as a player. Like
exactly. Yep.
Very good.
For the next selection, I believe.
Yeah, I did want to say.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Before we move on to 28, I did want to bring this up because it's relevant to what we were talking about with the Knicks. Just some breaking news. They declined the team option on Bobby Portis and waived Taj Gibson and Elfrid Payton. So I think it is sort of like with the Obi Toppin pick, like we were talking about. Yeah, they're moving towards the future for sure there.
Some live reaction. I think that the waiving Elfrid Payton means that they're starting Quickly is his name, I believe.
Yeah, Emmanuel Quickly.
Yeah, they're going to start Emmanuel Quickly right away. So they're going to have, I think, wow, getting rid of Portis really cleans up a little spot there for Toppin, which I mean you would assume they would do, right? But still, it's good to know they actually did it. And
I think those are good.
Get out of here.
Moves. Yeah, get Taj Gibson out of there.
Like you're talking to an Elfrid Payton truther here, so I still think Elfrid Payton's good, but yeah, you just drafted a point guard, so I see it. Anyways, at 28 we have Jaden McDaniels. He's a power forward out of Washington. He was drafted. This is a little bit confusing as well. So he ended up on the Wolves via the Thunder, which was originally the pick of the Lakers. So the Dennis Schroeder trade sent this pick to the Thunder, and then the Wolves later traded in the
trade for the big lanky white dude.
Yeah, and trade for the big lanky alien man.
Yeah.
So in terms of team fit, I like Jaden McDaniels at this late round pick because he's a very high potential player. Although he's very raw, he'll likely be a physical development project. Coming out of high school, McDaniels was a top 10 recruit due to his exceptional positional size. He's a 5'9" forward with a very long wingspan that's approaching 7 feet. He also shows promise as a shot creator and has very strong ball handling skills for his position. However, he's going to need a lot of work to meet his full promise in the NBA. He's very young and very physically immature. In college, McDaniels often struggled with his finishing ability because he was easily pushed around by bigger and stronger players. For a player that at an NBA level is projected to rely a lot on his handles in combination with his size to create shots as a power forward, adding strength is going to be a swing factor in his development as an offensive threat. But like overall, I think the Wolves have the time that they don't need their pick at 28 to have an immediate impact. Yeah. So McDaniels will hopefully be able to get some consistent reps against bench level competition. Well, he'll be able to more refine his skills as a mid-range scorer and pick and roll threat.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And unless anyone has anything to add to that player, we move on to the Toronto Raptors selection at number 29. Obviously, a pick that we were all waiting all night for. as I mean, if you've made it this far, you know who we are, so you know we're Raptors fans.
Yeah.
So the Toronto Raptors drafted Malachi Flynn, a guard out of San Diego State. He's 6'1", 185. His pro comparison, as we were mentioning earlier, is Fred VanVleet, who hopefully is not leaving us in this offseason, but the way things are kind of looking, he might. So here are the pros. Obviously, this guy screams Toronto Raptor. He has the attitude of a Toronto Raptor. He's cut from the same cloth as Fred VanVleet. He averaged 17.6 points per game on pretty good efficiency at San Diego State. And he is a gritty player on both ends of the floor. If you watch VanVleet play, when he does those little under the net layups where he's getting so much contact, that's how Malachi Flynn scores. And the way that Freddie plays on defense with his kind of, as you were kind of saying, high motor, that's exactly how he defends as well. He actually won Defensive Player of the Year in his college conference, which is quite exciting because obviously the Raptors are already, well, in my opinion, one of the best defensive teams in the league. You add Malachi Flynn, and if, on an unfortunate chance we lose Fred VanVleet, Malachi Flynn can plug in. He's mature, he has natural leadership, and he's a winner. And I think this is a great pick for the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, love it. Malachi Flynn.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead, boys. I'm opening this one up for discussion because this is obviously, our team's pick. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I've learned at this point to just defer to the brain trust of the Toronto Raptors. I think they know what they're doing and how they want to construct the team. But personally, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, there were two players that I really liked. One that I loved that went right after, just in terms of a culture fit. So I was a little disappointed to see them pass on him. With Jaden McDaniels, I liked him less, and they didn't even have the opportunity to draft him anyways. So I don't know. I like the pick. I don't love it. I think it's a pretty low ceiling pick in my opinion. Yeah, but I think he can contribute, especially if Fred walks. He can kind of fill that. He can fill that role, so to speak. Obviously, he's not going to be Fred VanVleet, but that kind of what Fred brings, he can bring similar things to the table. Yeah, I don't know. Good pick.
Brings...
It was never going to be a pick at 29 that changed the state of the Toronto Raptors.
No.
So I'm fine with it, but yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what Fred brought to the Raptors is something that if he does leave, we're going to miss a lot. The high motor defense, the way that he can just lock down pretty good guards. With Malachi Flynn, as you were just saying, the pick at 29, we're the second last pick in the draft. We're not going to be picking a guy that's going to necessarily change our system or change our system. But I think Malachi Flynn can plug into our system very well. And I think the culture fit actually works because I think I was watching a lot of his highlights last night, which I know are not necessarily a total package of what the player is. But this guy, he kind of also reminds me of Norman Powell a little bit in the way that he plays too. So, I mean, a mix of Powell and VanVleet. I know those are very on-the-nose comparisons considering he is a Toronto Raptor now, but I'm excited. I mean, like Aiden said, at this point as a Raptors fan, there's not much. I mean, obviously we can discuss it, but you got to just trust Masai. This front office, year after year, kills it. And I mean, I'm in on the pick, and I'm in on the Raptors, and let's do it.
And they value character so much in their players and prospects, right? So I trust that they really looked into him, and they know that he's gonna, if nothing else, bring a lot of energy and character that the Raptors value so much, which can go a long way in the way that you develop as a player and the impact that you can have in a dressing room. So I like it. So moving on to the pick that Aiden liked for the Raptors, but they passed on him, is Desmond Bane to the Memphis Grizzlies. This pick was originally acquired from Boston. He's a 6'6" shooting guard from TCU, and he's a great perimeter shooter. He shot 44% from three in college. He's also capable, so he's a point shooting guard, but he's also capable of playing the three, which I think will be potentially what Memphis is looking at slotting him in. instead of kind of clogging him up behind Dylan Brooks, who I'm big on. I quite like Dylan Brooks. So essentially, like he could go behind Kyle Anderson in his first year, and potentially, if it pans out and he does end up being the shooter that he was in college, he could take over that role someday. He also has elite basketball IQ, which makes him effective on the defensive end of the floor as well. So yeah, I think they'll probably try to slot him in at the small forward position to potentially down the road. But I like the pick for the Memphis Grizzlies. They got a great shooter and a guy that could potentially turn into a bit of a 3-and-D type of guy for them.
Yeah, like at this point in the draft, it's like there's not really much else to say. Like they traded up to get this pick, and if at pick 30 in the draft you get a guy who's just like a decent 3-and-D player off the bench, maybe a starter one day, like you did well, and like they got a guy, good physical frame for a guard that he can also slot into the small forward position, as you were saying, and yeah, I think it's just like overall just like very safe and just solid pick.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, no, it's no secret probably at this point that I love this player. I think the consensus on the pick is that it's like a safe, kind of boring pick, whatever. Like he's going to be a good 3-and-D player, as you guys said, but I think he's actually going to be better than that. I think that sort of safety and that consistency is undervalued, especially in the NBA draft when you have so many guys that get picked and just never do anything. To get this guy at 30, I think is an absolute steal for the Boston Celtics. I think, like I said, he would have been such a good fit on the Raptors for what he brings. Great basketball IQ, hard worker, plays hard. He just has a skill set that I think he's going to contribute. He could contribute on a contending team in year one, I think. And again, just to get that at the 30th overall pick is crazy. I think what Lucas was getting at is a good point, how I think they're going to try and play him at small forward, because I don't think he necessarily has, at least right now, he can develop, but I just don't think he has the versatility to defend guards right now, because he's not very quick or anything. So I don't know. But again, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I just think he's going to be one of these guys where we look back and we wonder how he fell this far in the draft.
Yeah. Like I think he's a good player. That's all I really have to say about it. I don't actually know like a lot about him, but just based on like what I've seen about him, he seems like he's a very solid pick at 30.
Well, I would like to obviously thank all of you three guys for coming, for being a part of this draft recap. And we're going to be doing a lot, like this might be a clip that you're listening to. This might be the whole thing that you're listening to. Either way, lots more coming here. We're going to have a hockey show with the guy who I think will be under me on the video. He's under me on the screen right now, but Lucas will be doing a hockey show with Kale as a guest as well.
Catch me on the Pump Take hockey segment for sure.
Absolutely. And as which should be uploaded roughly at the same time, me and Aiden are doing football preview shows, as well as we'll have a couple other of our team members on there as well. So yeah, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. And I mean, like if you want to, but if you don't, that's okay too. Just appreciate you like clicking on the video because it's good fun for us, and any support is appreciated. So
definitely,
yeah,
great work, boys.
and thanks a lot, boys.
Thank you.